This past week at Gateway, you might have noticed that the broadcast and many of the drivers talked about the track really being similar to the Phoenix track that will be hosting the season finale. But you might have noticed something else. Noticed what wasn't there at the front. See, there was a great battle between Joey Logano and Kyle Busch. You had Kurt Busch there, Ryan Blaney, Eric Almirola, hell, even Ross Chastain and Christopher Bell were dicing it up for 8th and 9th. It was pretty interesting up in the front. But guess who wasn't there? Well, if you clicked on this video, you're probably going to guess Hendrick Motorsports. Hendrick Motorsports had an absolutely atrocious day at Gateway. And in general, that might just be seen as a one-off. It might be seen as something that, yeah, Hendrick just missed the setup on a new track. But seeing how everyone sort of went into it thinking that it would be like New Hampshire or like Phoenix, you kind of have to look back at Phoenix and see what happened there. And that's what I want to go into today, because I think maybe this might be Hendrick Motorsports' Achilles heel this year. There's plenty of time left in the year. I'm not saying it's the end of the world. What I'm saying right now is if you're a Hendrick fan, well, you might be a little nervous when it comes to the season finale. Because, well, let's be real, if you're a Hendrick fan, you are looking at championships. You're not looking at getting a couple wins or getting some top 5s or top 10s. When you're a fan of a Hendrick driver, you're expecting your driver to win a championship. So, let's look at it. Well, I mentioned it before, but there is a huge similarity between Phoenix and Gateway. And every driver talked about it, and you could really see it with who was up front. Chase Briscoe, he was the one who was up front winning at Phoenix. Well, he was up front getting the pole, leading a bunch of laps, and running pretty fast at Gateway. Ross Chastain, he finished second at Phoenix, and after an incredibly eventful day at Gateway, he still managed to get a top 10 out of it and had one of the probably top 5 best cars of the day. Tyler Reddick, he was fast at Phoenix. He showed speed at different times at Gateway. It didn't work out. Ryan Blaney led the most laps at Phoenix, and he finished 4th in both that race and at Gateway, where he did lead a couple laps, but he seemed to be someone who was in contention for the win. And then Kurt Busch got a top 5 in both races. And that's really been what the trends have been so far this year with these two racetracks. At first, it seemed to be Ford domination. Ford in general has run these tracks very well and has led by far the most laps out of anybody. But Toyota is also catching up. While there are some Chevy teams that run well, it's not the Hendrick Chevy teams that run well. So you might be thinking, how bad really was it for Hendrick Motorsports? Well, let's look back at each driver. You have, first off, Chase Elliott, the guy who finished highest out of any of the Hendrick drivers at Phoenix earlier this year with 11th. Now, Chase Elliott did lead 50 laps, so it's not like he was running terribly, but he and Alan Gustafson lost the handling on the car, and they just were not as competitive later in the race as they were earlier, which is something that carried over to Gateway, where Elliott had some run-ins, yes, with Ross Chastain, but he still only finished 21st in the final running order. Looking a little more in depth, we're going to look at the driver ratings and percentage of laps in the top 15 for each Hendrick driver, starting with Chase. Chase had a driver rating of 121.7 out of 150, which is what the driver rating standard is out of, at Phoenix, and he had almost 94% of his laps in the top 15. He was relatively competitive, but when you're looking at going for a championship, being relatively competitive is not going to cut it. At Worldwide Technology Raceway, his driver rating plummeted from 121.7 to 60.9. His Gateway driver rating was less than half of what it was at Phoenix, and he was almost the lowest of the Hendrick drivers, and he only ran 37% of his laps in the top 15, which, yes, I know he had stuff go on, but still not a very good mark. Then you have the second fiddle for both races, when it comes to Hendrick at least, and that's Alex Bowman. Bowman has not necessarily been great at Phoenix in his career ever since he had that great debut at Phoenix in 2016. With that, he finished 14th at Phoenix and 13th at Gateway. Again, not great. And when you're looking at a driver who many are considering a consistent championship contender this year, not good enough. Now, for Bowman, he didn't run well in any sense of the word at either race. At Phoenix, he had a driver rating of about 84, and at Gateway, it was about 74. And neither were the worst out of any of the Hendrick drivers, but neither were very good either. He did run 98% of his laps in the top 15 at Phoenix, which is a good enough rating to at least mean that he would be up there if something happened, but that again is not good enough. And this plummeted to 41% at Gateway, which is kind of sad because this is the second most of any of the Hendrick teams. Then you have William Byron. Byron just wasn't good at either. He finished 18th at Phoenix earlier this year, and he was a complete no-show at Gateway, finishing 19th, and I'm pretty sure most people didn't even see him on the broadcast at all. His driver rating at Phoenix was okay at a 96, but at Gateway, it was a 59, which was the worst out of the Hendrick drivers, and it was pretty apparent seeing how he only ran 15% of his laps in the top 15, whereas he ran 99% of his laps in the top 15 at Phoenix. And then you have Kyle Larson, the defending champion. Larson ran in the top 5 for a lot of the race at Phoenix, but ultimately came home 34th after some issues, and he ran 12th at Gateway. Overall, he had the best car of the Hendrick stable for both of these, but again, it wouldn't have been championship caliber. I mean, look at these stats for instance. He had a 77 and a 79 driver rating respectively at Phoenix and Gateway, both of which were pretty awful. Phoenix, he was the worst of the Hendrick stable, and he actually, with the 79, was the best of them at Gateway. So overall, this shows that Hendrick from Phoenix to Gateway, two very similar tracks, has really fallen down in pretty much every measurable metric. And you have to look at some other people who were in the top 10 at Phoenix and Gateway. Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, and Joey Logano all were other drivers in the top 10 at Phoenix. Martin Truex Jr., Ross Chastain, and Christopher Bell all were ones in the top 10 at Gateway. When you look at Phoenix, yes, HMS had speed with Elliott and Larson, but they lost it at the end. And then when it comes to Gateway, none of them were competitive whatsoever, and they were much slower than even they were at Phoenix. Now, you've noticed it's the same drivers who are in the top 10 and top 5 between these two races. And I noticed that 5 of the top 10 drivers at each of these races were in the top 10 of the other race. Penske and JGR have it where it matters. If they can make it past the round of 8, these are going to be the guys going for the championship and not Hendrick Motorsports. I know earlier in the year, many of us talked about Hendrick possibly being the ones that could get all 4 of their cars into the round of 4, but I'm going to be honest, that probably won't happen. And if it does, they probably aren't going to win if they're running how they're running right now. I'm not saying that that's how they're going to be. They're probably going to improve. Hendrick always improves. So that's why I'm going to give you 4 major things as a Hendrick fan that you can look out for and say, hey, there's a lot of negative here, but there are some glimmers of hope, and it's not over by any means yet. First off, New Hampshire Motor Speedway is still on the schedule this summer. Now, that might not seem like the greatest beacon of hope, as that's a one-off race and it has nothing to do with the playoffs, except for the fact that New Hampshire, in a lot of ways, translates well to who could be fast at Phoenix. And, well, that would be a good testing ground, as all 4 Hendrick cars have wins. They're locked in the playoffs right now unless something amazingly wild happens. So they all will be able to go off and just do different setups, and inevitably one has to hit it, right? Also, Hendrick Motorsports, like I said before, always adapts. Hendrick has been awful at races before, come back to that same track or same type of track, and absolutely dominated because they learn from their mistakes. Look at another one of the teams that's around them, one of their main competitors for the championship, Joe Gibbs Racing. At the start of the year, we were all wondering what the hell was wrong with JGR, why they were so slow, why they just were a tinge off at great tracks that they were only good at, and why at a track like Phoenix, they were just downright slow as well. Well, they came to Gateway, a very similar track was set up and everything else like that, and they came out and ran really well. So who's to say that Hendrick Motorsports can't do the exact same thing? And then you have to look at Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. They won the 2021 and 20 championships at this racetrack. Yes, with a different car, but both of which were done in very not so good scenarios, I would say. Larson just didn't have the best of the championship 4 cars, and the team overcame that together with him with good strategy and managed to get him out in front with a good pit stop. And then you look at Chase Elliott. Elliott going into that playoffs in general and that round before was not the favorite, and he probably wasn't even the favorite when you look at 2020 in general in that last race, as Denny Hamlin looked to be the favorite. Yet Elliott went out there, took care of business, and won. So these are drivers who are the best in the business, and they have plenty of time to get this right. I'm not saying it's the end of the world. I personally think at the moment this is Hendrick's Achilles heel, but Hendrick has the ability to change that in the next 20 weeks. Now, with all of that, I want to pass this one on to you. What do you think? Do you think that Hendrick Motorsports might be in a little bit of trouble, or do you think I'm kind of overreacting here? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like in this video. Share this video and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you to all of my channel members for your continued support. And until next time, have a good one.